Hey everyone, what up? Mad Kaiser here, and welcome to what's basically a review of a lifetime. One that you guys been waiting for so goddamn long that I've just been, lazy, procrastinating, and utterly just focused on other things for me to do. And that is, of course, to review one of the most anticipated movies of this year. I did last year, which was you probably know as Infinity War, so it's time to wrap up and review Avengers Endgame. Now before I start this review, I just want to list on what has happened after Infinity War. So you see, after Infinity War has pleased both critics and fans, especially towards the ending, people were very excited to see what would happen in its sequel, Avengers Endgame. So much that they decided to watch the two other Marvel movies that came after Infinity War. Ant-Man and the Wasp, which helped explain what Ant-Man was doing all this time instead of partaking in Infinity War. And Captain Marvel, a movie which was based around a mysterious figure that Nick Fury at the end of Infinity War sent the transmuting big into, and also gave the origin story. Now those two movies were meant to tie a little bit of loose ends and to sort of flow and basically connect with what is essentially going to be Avengers Endgame. And of course the trailers popped up and people were really excited, especially with the marketing, especially with the posters, especially with everything. So much so that, honestly, I can't blame them. So, how did the movie fare up? Did it live up to expectations? Or is it as good as Endgame? Or did it succeed? So let's find out with...
I said no more surprises, but I was really hoping to pull off one last one.
The story is where Thanos has finally achieved his goal of wiping out half of the universe, and that the remaining Avengers who have survived plan to make one final stand against him and try to bring everyone back. Now of course, if you haven't seen the movie, I recommend you stop watching this review right now or go to this timestamp if you want to prevent being spoiled from, the movie's entire story, because that's what I'm going to do. So, okay? Are you gonna go? Okay. So the story begins with Hawkeye basically hanging out with his family, and he was still under house arrest, just like Ant-Man back at Ant-Man and the Wasp. So that ticks off my, where the hell Hawkeye was in Infinity War. Anyway, so he spends time with his family until they eventually vanish because they too fell victim to the snap. After that, it has been 3 weeks since Thanos has achieved his goal, and we are cutting back to where Tony and Nebula are drifting into space, where they have formed an unlikely friendship with each other. Really. Their supplies have been depleted in the ship, and so Tony decides to use his helmet to send out messages to Pepper in hoping that she retrieves it to see what Tony has been doing after he faced against Thanos. He goes very sad and depressed, so he tries to sleep. Till later, they wake up and realize that Captain Marvel is there, and she takes a ship alongside Tony and Nebula back to Earth to the Avengers facility, and then Tony reunites with the remaining Avengers who have survived, which include Captain America, Black Widow, Bruce Banner, and War Machine, and also his wife Pepper. And Rocket sees Nebula, which indicates that the other Guardians of the Galaxy have also fell victim to Thanos' snap. So the group have a meeting, and Cap asks where Thanos is, and Tony states that he doesn't know where he is, and he was basically infuriated on the fact that if they stood together, they were able to take down Thanos, and especially he was still angry about the issues that were unresolved in both Age of Ultron and of course Captain America's Civil War. And that's one of the reasons why is mainly because he lost Peter Parker, like he saw Peter Parker basically dying in his hands, and oh my god, I basically can't blame him. So Tony Stark gets so furious, he starts to pass out because of his trip from space. So then he's put to sleep where he has time to heal. Meanwhile, back on the topic at hand, Captain Marvel says that they should just basically go after Thanos right away, but the team are unsure about this because they don't even know where he is. So she decides that they will ask people who may know about it. But Nebula immediately states that there's no need because she knows exactly where Thanos would go after he succeeded in his goal, and that is the garden. And based on that information, Rocket pulls out a diagram and states that when Thanos used the stones on Earth, it has left out a huge burst of energy, and the same signature, he states, has appeared about 2 days ago on a different planet. So, with that new information, the team of Avengers assemble and basically go to the garden to hopefully not only take down Thanos, but also to get the Infinity Stones back so that they can revive everyone. And they of course have to leave Stark behind. So, they get to the garden, and once they check out, they realize that it's pretty much unprotected. There's no ships, no armada, no nothing. Just Thanos. And looks like in a simple hut, Thanos is just going on a daily routine, becoming basically a farmer. Like, seriously, this guy is like a farmer. The most threatening guy in all of the MCU has just been turned into a farmer. Yeah. So basically, Avengers attack him regardless, and basically interrogate him and stay on what happened to his stones. And it's revealed that Thanos has used the stones' power to destroy themselves, which pretty much destroys the hope of bringing everyone back, and shows that their power is so powerful that they had to be destroyed so they can't be used. Apart from hearing from this information, Thor basically just chops Thanos' head, which is a callback to Infinity War, where, if you remember, Thor basically stabbed Thanos in the chest, but Thanos would be like, "You should have gone for the head." So then 5 years later, the Earth's remaining population has just, been attempting to persevere against those catastrophic losses. And there's just nothing left to, progress. Rogers is now in a meeting with a support group of citizens in New York City who are just trying to cope with the loss of the snap and just be thankful that they survived, that they were lucky. Then it's later revealed that Tony has now been in a cabin living with Pepper and of course their young daughter Morgan. There you go. No? So that's where the first scene of Iron Man in Infinity War happened. I would say was building up to. He has a daughter! Nice! So we cut back to what's basically a used store self-storage facility in San Francisco, and all of a sudden a rat has actually activated the quantum tunnel in Lewis's van, which has finally pulled out Scott out of the quantum realm, where he has been trapped there after the end of Ant-Man and the Wasp. He was so disoriented and confused, because he was only gone there for 5 hours, that he wanders at basically a post-snap San Francisco, and he realizes that something terrible must have happened. He comes across the wall of the vanished and realizes is that his name is there, as well as Hope, Hank, and Janet, but doesn't find out that his daughter is in it. So basically goes to Cassie's home to see if she's there. But, well, you know what? She is! She's alive! There you go. And oh my god, she's gone older. Looking good. Don't sue me, please. So yeah, after he realizes that, basically Wasp, Hank, and Janet have been vanished, he basically goes to the Avengers facility in the Lewis van. Upon this, at the Avengers facility, Romanoff, who's currently the leader of the Avengers, has finished a meeting with Nebula, Okoye, Captain Marvel, Rocket, and War Machine, which has regarded the continuing repercussions of the snap throughout the universe. Following that dismissal, Rhodes remains behind to give a status update regarding a former teammate, Hawkeye, who has now become a vigilante. He states that Hawkeye is responsible for multiple deaths of the Mexican cartel. Till later, Captain America shows up in the room, and both of them have just, a lovely conversation. And now they have tried to devote their lives into helping others move on from what happened. But unfortunately, those two still just can't get over the loss. Now, of course, mood is interrupted when Ant-Man arrives, and he is, of course, meeting with the Avengers. And especially, Captain America, because he's idol. And he basically has told that there is possibly a way that they could get everyone back, as he has told that he has gone through the quantum realm, and he might state that could be used as a soft way to use time travel. Without that much knowledge, they head to Stark to get some answers. So Stark at his home is basically just spending time with his family till the remaining Avengers come, and they just talk about the idea of like a time heist. But Stark just basically mocks that idea, as basically with time travel it fears that altering the past could erase the very existence as it stands, because basically he's finished with the Avengers and wants to put the past behind him, because now he's got a daughter and he's spent a good time with Pepper. So there you go. So after Stark declines, they basically go up to a dino and they meet Bruce Banner, and oh my god, holy whoa! It seems that after the snap that both and Hulk and Banner's defeat was so hard, so what they did was just try to merge together and use gamma radiation to morph his body, so not only can he have the appearance and strength of the Hulk, but also the knowledge and intelligence of Bruce Banner. As again, best of both worlds. Yep, it's actually pretty hilarious, and people have been referring to him as Professor Hulk, which is pretty cool. It's and also some people have controversy, but I'll get to that. I'll get to that later. So what they did, well, despite the fact that he doesn't have that knowledge of quantum physics, because it was claiming to be outside of his expertise, he still agrees to the experiment with the idea. And then we cut back to Tony, who's just washing dishes, and later come across a picture of his dad, who was wet, and also a picture of himself and Peter Parker. And he just gets flashbacks of the time when he lost him at Titan. So he basically uses Friday to simulate models about the time travel in the quantum realm. And he thinks that it might actually work if he uses an inverted Mobius strip model. So so what he means is that basically he starts now thinking of the idea and basically agrees. Meanwhile, he talks about Pepper and knowing the decision to make, whether it's either to leave the future he has now and to just fix what was wrong back at the past. So basically, it's either choose his family or everyone else. But Pepper has convinced him Pepper has somehow convinced him to return to the Avengers. I like this kind of new Pepper. So yeah, so back at the facility, so back at the facility, Banners, Romanoff, and Rogers basically test around this new type of time travel with the quantum realm. So they send Lang back, but through multiple experiments, he grows older, grows younger, and back to himself. Then Tony goes back to the facility as well, and decides to help them after all. He decides to use his expertise and to see on who's available, and to make sure that he doesn't want to lose his daughter in the end. He basically doesn't want to change his future that much. So what they do is basically just be friends again. Like Tony and Cap are friends again. So then Nebula, Rocket, and War Machine join the Avengers as well. And meanwhile, Banner and Rocket decide to go to Tornsberg, Norway, which has turned into New Asgard, to see where the remaining Asgardians left. And also, they met Valkyrie, and holy crap, she's alive. I mean, I didn't see her in Infinity War. I thought she just died. They finally meet Thor, which looks like he wasn't doing very well after the loss, as he was very depressed, so much that he's actually become an alcoholic, and he's fat. Well, Star-Lord, if you're trying to do your whole comparison of who's good looking, well, you basically won. I know you're still dead, but you basically won. And of course, he spends time playing Fortnite. With, of course, Meek and, of course, my buddy Korg. I miss those two, honestly. And as much as Thor has a no care in the world attitude, he still breaks down every time when he's mentioned the word Thanos. So, Thor has basically moved on and just doesn't want to hear about Thanos ever since he became a failure. But then Banner and Rocket basically bribe him, saying that they'll give him a beer. Because, he likes beer. Moving on that, we go to Tokyo, where Hawkeye, now known as Ronin, basically kills a lot of Japanese Yakuza members, including their boss, until Black Widow comes and then tells him to join the Avengers. But Martin doesn't want anything to do with the plan, but with some very convincing tactics from Romanoff, Barton eventually decides to return to the Avengers headquarters. And now at the facility, with basically as much as all the Avengers have been assembled, they have completed their construction of their own quantum tunnel and using the advanced tech suits, and they have prepared test runs. And we get something completely hilarious, as Rhodes suggests that they should just travel back to the past to kill baby Thanos. I think someone has been watching how it should have ended. That's very clever of you guys. But Hulk says that it's ridiculous, and saying that altering events in the past will not alter the present. It'll probably want to create an alternate universe. Time travel time travel is used a lot for most stuff, but it can also get really convoluted. This though, not too complicated. So after that, so what they do was basically test on who would do the test runs. So basically, Hawkeye steps in because he thinks he's just expendable and that nobody likes him, which is true-ish. So basically becomes a lab rat and tests out the time travel, and actually works. He goes back to his house and sees his family before disappearing, saying that it would work. So with that test run being a success, they now go to the next phase of the plan, which is determine on where each Infinity Stone was back in the past, like where they were located. And not only that, but they also get a supply, like a limited supply of pin particles that Ant-Man has, and saying that they don't have any means of replenishing because Hank is currently dead, and they only have enough for one round trip each. So that is vital. So as the team has discussed their plans and their past encounters with the Infinity Stones, they just basically managed to recall the placement of each Infinity Stone in time. Stuff like, say, the time, space, and mind stones were all present in, the Battle of New York in the first Avengers. But however, the Reality Stone was present on Asgard, Thor, the Dark World, and the Soul was at Vormir, which we saw in Infinity War, and the Power Stone was at Morag from Guardians of the Galaxy. With that, the Avengers are split into 3 separate teams. Thor and Rocket to Asgard, Nebula and War Machine to Morag, Black Widow and Hawkeye to Vormir, and Iron Man, Captain America, Hulk, and Ant-Man to New York. So, we go back to the past. Gotta go back to the past, where we go basically to, the scene of the first Avengers movie. And Team 1 has seen what their objectives are. So what Hulk does is go to the New York Sanctum, where he counters the Ancient One, the Sorcerer Supreme, who explains that to Banner that Doctor Strange is not yet, the Sorcerer Supreme. So he tries to take this Time Stone, but it doesn't go too well. But after much convincing, the Ancient One accepts Banner's proposal and lets him take the Time Stone. And while we go on to that, Ant-Man and Iron Man are going to Stark Tower, where after basically the Avengers won and Loki got arrested, and Stark decides to depart in his current Iron Man armor carrying Lang, and Lang plants himself onto the past Tony Stark, who's transporting the Tesseract, till of course they're countered by Alexander Pierce from Captain America, the Winter Soldier. Who would have thunk it? So they have a little bit of issue with trying to get the Tesseract, so much so that it doesn't go well for them. Then, however, the Shield Strike team, which is formed of Hydra agents, because Captain America Civil War, have basically took down Loki's scepter, and now Captain America has been tasked with retrieving it. He counters, Rumnau, Sitwell, and Rollins, who are the other Hydra agents, and in a very familiar scene, before he basically mutters Hell Hydra to them, which earns their trust and basically lets him take the spear. Rogers has the spear until he counters his 2012 past self and basically have a small fight. of course, future Captain America wins because we know that in this universe, the future Captain America is a million times better than the old one. And then the team has regrouped and realized that Stark and Ant-Man has basically ruined their way of getting the Tesseract now. But Tony has remembered that there is a place and time they can find on where the Tesseract can be, but also to get some additional pin particles so they can use it to return home. So Scott has been given the scepter back and returns back to the present, while Stark and Rogers go to Camp Lehigh in 1970. So we're going back to basically what is essentially Captain America: The First Avenger. Don't like that. Butchering now. Moving on, we go to Thor and Rocket, who are able to arrive on Asgard and see that her mother has extracted the Aether out of Jane's, body. I mean, if you have seen Thor: The Dark World, I think it's pretty obvious you should know what happens in that movie, even though that movie sucks. Then Thor gets distracted by his mother and then knows that she will die soon. But then, and Rocket is able to retrieve the Reality Stone, meets up with his mother, and also, they have a nice little talk off before, Thor grabs Mjolnir, where he's basically worthy still, and says one final goodbye to his mother before he and Rocket return back to the present. Now we're at Morag, where basically Rhodey, Nebula, Romanoff, and Clint have arrived. Romanoff and Clint go to Vormir, while Nebula and Rhodey just go to the Temple Vault and just basically watch Star-Lord dance. Sorry, I'm getting sidetracked. So what happens is that War Machine and Nebula just knock the guy out and basically just take the Power Stone at the cost of Nebula's flesh on her arm. But however, somewhere else in this universe, Thanos says that Ronan, the Accuser, has found the location of the Power Stone, and he's sharing this with the past Gamora and Nebula. But however, the two Nebula systems plot conveniently start interfacing with each other, which, although the present Nebula is unaware, somehow the past Nebula broadcasts her future self visual feed. Thanos basically puts the past Nebula into examination by Ebony Maw, or Squidward as Tony likes to call him. And past Nebula basically just still swears her loyalty and father, and then Thanos basically accelerates his plan to achieve his goal quicker. Meanwhile, Rhodes has got the Power Stone and travels back into the present, while Nebula has been malfunctioning and is stuck there, and then Thanos and the past Nebula kidnap her. And then the past Nebula uses a way to impersonate the present Nebula so they can travel forward back in time to the future, or the present sorry. But meanwhile, Rogers and Stark are now at 1970 at the Watcher Informant, and they basically disguise and they find not only the Tesseract and the pin particles. But before they go back to the past, Tony accidentally runs by his dad, Howard Stark, who was looking for Arnim Zola, and he basically talks to his dad about his birth and was expected to that very day. And however, we also encounter past Hank Pym, where Rogers steals the pin particles. And also Rogers also encounters Peggy Carter, but he decides that that's not too important. More people are at stake here, so he and Tony basically just, go back to the present. Now this is the hardest part, and that is Romanoff and Barton. They go to Vormir, where of course they're greeted by the Red Skull. And of course we know what happens in Vormir. In order to get the Soul Stone, one must have to make a sacrifice to get the Soul Stone. But so they both try to fight each other on who needs to sacrifice himself, but till eventually Black Widow decides that Clint, has a family and Romanoff basically doesn't really have. So Romanoff sacrifices herself and Barton gets the Soul Stone, returns back to the present. And now the team has returned back to the facility in the present with all 650 stones. And they immediately take the notice of the absence of Romanoff's death, which they are just, spent a small time just, mourning for. But before they of course move on from that and basically proceed to plan to use the stones, Stark, with the help of Hulk and Rocket, creates a nano gauntlet to harness the stones, and Rocket starts a debate on who should use it. Thor suggested he would use it because he thinks he's the strongest, but considering that he's an alcoholic and fat, I don't think that would cut for him. So in the end, it's of course Hulk would use it because, he has a relationship with gamma radiation, which would make him a safe candidate. And basically he puts in the gauntlet, screams in pain, and then finally snaps his fingers, which restores everyone back to the universe. Not before taking a heavy blow as well. Well, Barton tests this theory when he gets a call from his wife Laura, which means, well, look at that. They actually did. They actually brought everyone back. But not before the past Nebula has arrived at the quantum tunnel to the Avengers facility, and then with the pin particle they immediately allowed Thanos' warship to basically arrive there from the present, and basically they just blow the Avengers facility up. They just blow it up. The moment they see Thanos, it just immediately goes into nothing. Like, meanwhile, and in that case, Thanos basically meets up with past Nebula, who gives her the order to find the remaining stones as he waits for the Avengers. Meanwhile, Gamora, the past one, asks the future Nebula of what happened between them, and Nebula admits that she was determined to kill Gamora more than once, but the two eventually form a bond as sisters and become friends, because friendship is the most important thing. So yeah, Gamora helps the present Nebula to escape and turns against Thanos, and then after the huge aftermath of the destruction of the facility, the Avengers have been separated, which leaves with Thor, Rogers and Stark, who are near the top of the rubble, so they decide to attack Thanos on their own. While Thanos has found the gauntlet deep in the rubble and protects it from, you guessed it, those creatures from Infinity War. Past Nebula returns to disguise so he can hand over the gauntlet, but not before the past Nebula tries to kill them, till they are stopped by past Gamora and the present Nebula. They try to convince the past Nebula to also leave Thanos, but she refuses, so the present Nebula is forced to kill her past self. Her present version kills her past version. Does that mean that Enabler is going to die soon? Fuck it, let's move on to the next one, where Thor and Rogers and Stark has an awesome fight scene with Thanos. But even still, Thanos is proving to be too powerful, and he sees that their actions, where his plan to wipe out half of the universe, was flawed, basically because those who survived were too busy dwelling on that past. So, learning from that, Thanos plans to create a new plan, and that is just to turn out to wipe out everything in the universe and rebuild it in his own image, with no one having knowledge about what came before. So basically he just turns into, his plan becomes basically what some generic villains would do. So yeah, his plan to restore balance and where he became the main protagonist of Infinity War is completely dunked by, and now it's changed into, a generic villain. But it doesn't matter, it's reasonable. So after that, Thor and Thanos duke it out. Till later, it's revealed that Rogers is worthy and wields Mjolnir, and basically goes toe to toe with Thanos, using both his shield and the hammer. Then, basically, Thanos taunts Captain America with the notion that he will take pleasure in destroying the Earth, and then later, the Black Order descends from the ship and have their own armies of Chitauri from the first Avengers, Outriders from Infinity War, and the Sakarans. I forgot where they're from, I'm too ignorant. And with the shield both broken and Mjolnir out of reach, and Rogers basically all alone against both Thanos and millions of armies. Well, he's fucked. But just when all hope is lost, you think all hope is lost, guess what happens? That's right, portals open, and the previous fallen heroes, including Falcon, Doctor Strange, Black Panther, Shuri, Scarlet Witch, Spider-Man, Drax, Groot, Wasp, Star-Lord, Mantis, Winter Soldier, and also joined the battle with Pepper Potts in her own armored Iron Man suit, alongside Valkyrie, Okoye, Korg, and Meg. And also Banner, Lang, Rhodey, and Rocket return from underground. So they all join up together, and oh my god, this is probably the best moment in the entire MCU. These heroes lead the forces of the Masters of the Mystic Arts, the Wakandan Army, Ravagers, and the Asgardians in the Battle of Earth, with Rogers saying the classic line, "Avengers Assemble." Holy hell yeah! Now shit is about to get down. So basically they all have an awesome fight, and it's just amazing. Like all the Avengers and the Allies basically just beat the crap out of any enemy, and just the interactions is just basically, if you thought the action in both the first Avengers as well as Age of Ultron and Infinity War could not be topped, well guess what? Endgame did it. They topped it. Noise. So the battle continues, and it's pretty awesome. And also, guess what? Who makes an appearance? That's right, even Scarlet Witch. And oh my god, she's just the MVP, isn't she? Just ever since Civil War, she's become an MVP. Like, oh my god, she's just that awesome. So they basically all continue to fight where the remaining Avengers have to get the Infinity Gauntlet before Thanos gets there. So in multiple groups, they go and get to the van, which is basically swarmed with multiple enemies, and they all keep going. And as much as they try to, there's too many reinforcements, especially when a big ship decides to destroy everyone except by it, because Thanos basically just wants to kill everyone, including his own troops. Like, wow, some proud followers you turned out to be. Maybe you should just kill Thanos. So yeah, the ship. So Thanos orders the ship to destroy everyone until they're stopped by the arrival of Captain Marvel. Wow, considering that she did kind of a build up from her own standalone movie, in fact that she has a little less screen time, kind of really makes me wonder like what she was doing the whole time, and how did she get that fast? But who cares? She helps try to get to the Infinity Gauntlet, and then sooner or later, Thanos basically destroys the van and gets the gauntlet from both Peter Parker and Captain Marvel. And then both Captain Marvel and Thanos has a small, actually cool fight. And basically, it shows that Captain Marvel is basically OP. Till basically Thanos uses the Power Stone and basically just, punches the shit out of her. Like, damn. The other Avengers try to fight against Thanos, but are easily beaten, and not before Stark having one last final stand against him, and then Thanos has gained all Infinity Stones. And he is about to do the snap. Oh no. But, in a small twist, he realizes that all the stones in his gauntlet are gone, and are in Stark's nanotech suit, which now Iron Man has all the Infinity Stones, and he declares that he is Iron Man, and he snaps his fingers. And guess what? In a parallel to Infinity War, where basically everyone who died, it's only Thanos' army, as well as Thanos, has now turned into dust. But not before Thanos accepts his defeat, like the good man he is. But however, Stark has collapsed from his wounds, and apparently his injuries are so severe that he died in front of both Pepper Potts, Rhodes, and Peter Parker. So after that, Tony dies, and everyone holds a funeral for him, including also Nick Fury and Maria Hill show up, as well as Aunt May and the other people. They all mourn for his death, and moving on from that, Thor leads New Asgard to Valkyrie to become its new ruler, while Thor goes with the Guardians of the Galaxy for another adventure. And in the meantime, Banner, Cap, Falcon, and Winter Soldier, they all join together, and Cap returns the remaining stones. Until Cap comes back, and this time he's older now, and realizes that it's time for him to retire, and he gives the shield to Falcon to become the next Captain America. And in the end credits, it was revealed that during that time, he was dancing with his new wife, Peggy Carter. And so, happy ending! And actually a very great ending. So anyway, that was the plot of Avengers Endgame, and it's pretty good. I mean, I absolutely did like it. But however, I do want to address some of the controversial issues that it might have with fans. Let's start off with the pacing of it. I mean, for the most part, I do actually like the pacing. I didn't mind it as much as, Infinity War. But some people did state on how they put a lot more time with time travel antics rather than just, having the finale, which was the best thing about the Endgame. That is sort of true, but to me, I felt like the time travel was sort of a build-up, like it was leading on to this moment. And plus, the final battle was pretty much the pinnacle of what made this movie very great, as well as the interaction of characters.
Owe this to everyone who's not in this room to try.
Now we move on to the characters. Now, for the most part, the characters are all pretty good and pretty much the same as they were before, but a little bit more fresh and nuanced, and everything's just... what was great about the characters in previous movies is not lost in this one as well. Like, absolutely loved it. I mean, the interactions were still great, in my opinion, but however, there was some controversy with two characters. First one was Professor Hulk. There were some people saying that they did not like on the way he was like this comic relief, kind of weird looking Hulk, where he basically just, became, an intelligent but also a strong Hulk. People would have preferred that he was, the Hulk, just mindless, dumb, but still able to kick some ass. The other controversy that some people say is Thor, because they just cannot stand on how fat and depressed and how he became an alcoholic. From my opinion, I did not mind them at all. I thought they were good additions. And then there was, of course, Thanos. Now, I understand that some people may say that his new plan would basically ruin what made Thanos Infinity War great, but that's not really his fault. It's fault. I mean, it's mainly because, well, he tried to get what he achieved and learned out that nothing was very satisfactory, so he tried fixing that. I mean, he's still a great villain. I mean, he still kicks a lot of ass, and he's still threatening. He's still probably one of Marvel's greatest villains of all time. But overall, the characters are pretty good. The soundtrack, again, also really good. And yeah, the visuals, the effects, the action, they're all amazing. I mean, what's there really much to say about this movie? I mean, this is just pretty much amazing. I mean, I think overall that Avengers Endgame turned out to be, one that not only had a lot of high expectations, but lived up to those expectations. Now yes, I know there's a slight disappointments it had, like for example, like Captain Marvel not having that much screen time, though to be fair, she was OP, so it kinda made sense. And there's also Black Widow, who some people just didn't like on how she just, basically just gave up her own life. Like, they wanted probably something more for her to do, really. But I thought her sacrifice was meaningful. But in the end, let's wrap up with Avengers Endgame. So, Avengers Endgame is truly a great sequel to Infinity War, and maybe even doing itself even better than a lot of Marvel sequels. The characters are still great, the action's still awesome, even though it's not as much as Infinity Wars. Like, there's lots of great moments from the story, the cool time travel aspects, and overall having a very satisfying and conclusive ending to the Infinity Saga. Well, until it's revealed that Spider-Man Far From Home was the actual final movie in the Infinity Saga, but regardless, this was still a great MCU movie, and yes, I understand that by itself, if you haven't watched any of the Marvel movies prior, it's okay, but if you have, you probably would say that this is very great. Personally, I like this a lot more than Infinity War because it was a lot more conclusive. Like, it felt more satisfying in the end. And some of the loose ends that Infinity War had were tied up with not only the later films, but this movie as well. Like, the actors, the producers, and basically everyone who worked on this movie basically put a lot of love and effort into this movie, and I absolutely had to applaud them for that. Like, honestly. So, Avengers Endgame is not only a great sequel to Infinity War, but is actually my new favorite MCU film. So, I'm going to give Avengers Endgame 5 nanotech gauntlets out of 5. Anyway guys, thank you guys so much for watching. I know I've done this so late, you can just shoot me for it, but honestly, I hope this is what you wanted, because I honestly did put some work and effort into this, kinda, but still. Honestly guys, thank you guys so much for watching. So punch that like button, drop down comment, and click that subscribe button if you're new. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Mad Kaiser out.